Chapter 1. September 689 A.D. Cynethryth peered over the prow and gasped at the lashing foam that soaked her frock to leave it clinging tighter, if that were possible, to her swollen belly. The sea air, even on this mild late summer's day, left her shivering as it added to the chill of the sea water permeating her linen dress and shift to the skin.
"Daughter, come down here at once."
The rest of the warrior's words were lost to the breeze in an incoherent muttering, but she caught,
"In your condition."
Little did she care for any discomfort, so her glance at the coast of her beloved Wyrd more than compensated. Nearing her confinement, she was 8 months into this pregnancy, Cynethryth had feared her child would not be born on the isle. Indeed, when she had followed her husband to Rome, she thought never to see Wyrd again. As their ship approached the inlet to her birthplace at Ceredigsford, her emotions tumbled and whirled like the chopping waves where the tide met the river. She almost tumbled too as she picked her ungainly way to the steadying arms of her father. The joy of beholding Wyrd and the anticipation of reuniting with her dearest friend Rowena could not overcome the grief, still raw, of her loss of Cadwalla, whose child kicked mercilessly inside her womb. How cruel a Wyrd had taken him from her after so few precious nights together, but at least she would see something of him again in the face of their offspring. Aethelheard, concerned for them both, took off his cloak and wrapped it around his trembling, headstrong daughter.
"The ship'll not berth the sooner for all your staring over the bows, my angel."
He enfolded her in his strong arms, and she snuggled against the man who had raised her in childhood. She had wounded him by disobedience over her betrothal, but their past differences, set aside, had brought them closer than ever. She basked in the fact that he had received the message of Christ in Rome, accepted baptism, and, without thinking, called her his angel. Aethelheard's emotions, too, although less intense, were contrasting. His love of Wyrd, no less strong than hers, and of Ceredigsford in particular, meant his spirits rose at their approach. But what would greet him? His possessions were now fallen into the hands of Cadwalla's, the conqueror's, man Guthred, from what his daughter had told him. Would he have to renew hostilities to wrest back what was his? He glanced down at the bedraggled red-gold hair of his only child, and praised, who? The Lord Jesus or Freya, who had blessed him with a grandchild for his old age. Ashamed at his spiritual ambivalence, he could not meet the adoring gaze of the dark grey eyes, full of tenderness, that turned up and scanned his face to gauge his sentiments.
"What manner of man is this Guthred?"
"A good man, father, a friend."
"No friend of mine."
She pressed closer to him, and the unborn child, as if to reprove him, kicked against his side. Cynethryth groaned, and her father held her tighter.
"Yon's a warrior you're carrying, dear heart. He nigh on kicked me into the sea."
"And what if he's a she, father?"
"In that case she'll be as reckless, wilful, and winsome as her mother."
Their laughter, precious in its complicity with the unspoken sense of forgiveness, broke off as the ship nudged against the wooden quay, causing Aethelheard to brace himself, tightening his hold on her.
"Home at last."
But there was an edge of unease in his voice. He helped Cynethryth over the side of the ship, where willing hands, belonging to familiar faces grinning into hers, hoisted her onto the quay.
"Cynethryth!"
A woman's voice rose above the general stridency assailing her ears.
"Rowena!"
Island life suited her friend, who bore down on her in the full bloom of health. Rowena had always been pretty, with her pale hair like burnished copper and almond-shaped eyes of sage green, but Cynethryth had never seen her so comely.
"Look at you!"
Rowena rushed to embrace her.
"Oh, you poor thing, you're soaked through. Come with me before you catch your death of cold. There's a fire in the hall, and we'll get you some dry clothes. How many months is it? You must be due soon."
Aethelheard smiled at their retreating backs. Had he lost her already?